Mommy's on camera.
Hey y'all, I'm Jennifer with Spark Flash Fiction, and tonight we get to talk to Molly Jo Realy. So let me introduce her real quick, okay? A Southern hippie chick at heart, Molly Jo is author of the romantic location mystery novel Nola and creator of the Book Builder Workbook. The founder of New Inklings Press, she is also an editor and coach who strives to encourage people to embrace their unique talents to share stories as only they can. Addicted to God, cats, tea, planners, and pens in no particular order. So, Molly Jo, we are really excited to have you today. Let's start by talking about the inspiration behind your story, Hints of Love.
I don't actually have an inspiration for it. I sat down, I knew the theme is love in disguise. So obviously the first thing that comes up is it's going to be a Halloween costume. And I thought most people will probably stay away from that because it's the first thing that pops into their head. So I thought, well, what else could I do? Love in disguise, love in disguise. And it came to me, what if that love is already there? You know, I wanted like these two strangers to meet and reveal themselves, oh, neighborhood, childhood friends or something. And that's not my trope. That's not my style of writing. And it evolved into an already existing relationship, but one of them was in costume and didn't recognize the other. And as I started writing it, it just really evolved that way. I had so much fun writing it. And then the real quick, the sunflower aspect of it was real neat too. It took me by surprise. I did not expect sunflowers to be a theme that followed throughout the entire story, but it did. And I get so surprised and so giddy when I find that there's something that my writing is following through all the way and I didn't plan it. That was a lot of fun for me too.
Well, you know, I thought that was interesting when your takeover, you shared what sunflowers represented, and I never knew that. So for the ones who didn't get to see your takeover, why don't you tell us what sunflowers represent?
So sunflowers in a biblical sense represent faith, positivity, strength, and endurance. In the lay medical world, it is a symbol for people who are fighting autoimmune or otherwise undiagnosed conditions. And I have been going through 3.5 years of different testing to see if I have an autoimmune disorder. And so far, nobody's been able to pinpoint it. And it's really dependent upon if I have what they call a flare or not. If I get a blood test while I have a flare, the doctors are absolutely adamant that I am very, very sick. But if it was a day like today where I'm feeling good, I'm eating healthy, I've gotten enough rest, then I'm perfectly healthy. So for me, on a personal level, the week that a lot of this started to happen, when I wrote the story 2 months ago, people came to town. There were sunflowers everywhere. A friend was crocheting a scarf that had little sunflowers on it. And she didn't know it was for me, but she said, as she was crocheting, as she was making it, God kept saying, this is for Molly, this is for Molly. So she asked me if I would like the scarf. And I said, well, show me a picture of it. I didn't know what it looked like. I said, well, just show me a picture of it. And as soon as I saw that it had little sunflowers on, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That scarf is meant for me. So, you know, I think that that's God's way of saying, hey, I'm here. I'm always going to be here. And the sunflower itself has so many millions of seeds and petals and flowers that just distribute itself and propagates over and over and over. And it's just a symbol of hope and endurance. It lasts through spring, summer, and fall. And in the winter, they don't die. They just go dormant. So that's pretty exciting too.
Yeah, that is really cool. Especially since in your story, if I'm remembering this correctly, and I'm not accidentally getting it mixed up with another story, she's been separated from her husband for a while because he's off, I think, on a work trip, and she's like really missing him. And so that endurance really plays a part in that too.
Yes. And I don't want to give away the story. It's only 1,000 words. I could give it away by just talking about it, right? That's what flash fiction is. But the sunflower does feature into it. And she says that, oh, he planted sunflowers for me in the spring, you know, and there's sunflowers there at the fall festival where they're at as well. And it's just, again, the way it came about, it it made me so giddy. I keep saying that word, but it really did. It just made me so happy that these characters are using the sunflower as a symbol of their own endurance, when really it was just supposed to be a side effect of the fact that this is taking place outdoors in the fall, where sunflowers tend to thrive. But sunflowers thrive almost throughout at least half of the year, definitely in summer and in fall. So yeah, it'd be turned into their symbol of endurance and love and positivity and faith. Faith is a good element in that story as well. So.
Okay, now my next question is, what's your favorite romance trope? Because like this one features a couple that's already married and like it celebrates the love of a marriage. But I'm curious, is that a trope you love to write about, or do you prefer a different trope?
I don't think I have one particular one. I am very, when I write my characters, I write realism into relationships and scenes, whether they be strangers or married couples. I dig into the emotions, and I think my favorite way of writing any romance is raw and natural and authentic. If there's a trope name for that, great, that's what I'll take. But there's lists of the location, the forced proximity where they have to be together. And I've written short stories for Spark as well as on my own with that trope. My novel is set where it's more of a romantic suspense, but some of that would involve a forced proximity, not entirely so, but it's also that not enemies to lovers trope. There was another one that I was reading about that I thought, oh, that might be it. Basically where one character is trying to help another overcome something, and they end up falling in love during the journey. So there's a lot of that too. I don't have one trope. I have them all. I love them all.
Well, I know you wrote a bit of a romantic suspense in a novel form, but tell me, is that your favorite subgenre of romance, or do you find yourself gravitating towards another subgenre?
You mean as far as the suspense part of it? So when I wrote my novel, I really thought it was just a suspense. And my editor came back to me and she sat me down over lunch and she said, I don't want you to look at, I'll send my notes, my edits to you later, but we have to talk about this. I said, why? And she said, well, because honey, you wrote a romance. And I didn't know I had written a romance. And I was so sad because I was envisioning romance like the 1980s, red velvet, Daniel Steele, lace and roses, and all the just icky parts of those kinds of books. And I'm like, I don't write that. No, it's a suspense. I mean, there's like a possible murder here. There's a suspense. But again, what we were talking about, how I write the reality of emotions and relationships that grow and evolve into it. And thankfully, that's a gift I believe God's given me, is to be able to express that with ease on the page so that the reader understands what the characters are going through is so important. And so it took me a good 24 hours before I could read her notes and go through it and accept that, oh my gosh, not only did I write a romance, but I did a pretty good job of it. And so we changed she explained it very clearly. She said, if you market this as a suspense, you'll hit 10% of that market and your readers will be somewhat disappointed. If you market it as a romance, you're going to hit 100% of that audience and most of the people will be thrilled. Plus you'll add on the suspense subgenre of it and those readers will be thrilled as well. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, so now I'm apparently really in love with writing romantic suspense.
Well, tell us a little bit about Nola.
It is the story of a woman who gets very frustrated with her life and ends up leaving California and finds herself in the middle of the night taking a plane. So she ends up in New Orleans. As she's in New Orleans trying to figure out just what to do, she's just kind of like I'm done with the world. I'm going here. I'm going to party for the week and, just let loose kind of an attitude. She ends up meeting a woman who turns into a good friend of hers, who introduces her to the other woman. Her name is Tony. The first character is Josie, or Penny. She goes by both. And Tony introduces Penny to her best friend, who's a guy. His name is Rain. and he may or may not have killed his wife 5 years ago.
Ooh.
So while Josie is trying to find where she lands in New Orleans and appreciate all that New Orleans has to offer, she's learning to help these people go through different things that they're going through. And then she's also finding a hiding spot because her ex-boyfriend was not the nicest person, and she's just trying to keep from unraveling. And these two, Rain and Tony, offer her this shelter. So she ends up falling in love with Rain, but then she finds out that he may not be all that he says he is or presents himself to be.
Ooh.
Cliffhanger. I'm not telling you how it ends.
Now, if I understand correctly, you mentioned before we went live that these characters would not leave you alone, right? And so you ended up exploring them again in another story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you say the sequel was going to come out soon, or that it was already out?
No, I'm still working on it. It's very fresh. I'm still in the first drafts of it. I don't even have the first 5 chapters written. So, but, and it's been a while, which I owe them, my characters, an apology, because it's been published for 5 years now and I haven't done the follow-up. But, there was this thing called COVID and a pandemic that kind of took me out of the playing field for a little while. But yeah, the characters, I was trying to write something different. I had a completely different plot. I had it ready to go. I was so excited. I was even telling my readers, hey, this is the next thing I'm working on. And my characters from NOLA would not leave me alone. They said, no, we want you back here. And so I'm working on what I call a sideways sequel, which is the secondary characters in NOLA are the primary characters in the next book. And it is set not only, NOLA, by the way, stands for New Orleans, Louisiana. So it is set, my first book is set purely in New Orleans. The second book is called Friendly. It is going to be set partly in New Orleans, but also partly in Columbus, Mississippi, which is nicknamed the Friendly City. It's also nicknamed Possum Town, but that's a more different kind of prospect kind of thing. But my characters are going to be going back and forth. And what I love about that is I'm familiar with Columbus. It's a very small town, but it's where Tennessee Williams lived when he was very young. And I've gone out there. I have a friend who lives out there, and I've gone to stay with her, toured the antebellum homes, toured Tennessee Williams Museum, had the catfish in the alley. It's just a really wonderful Southern experience. And I recommend anybody that can go there, do it. Absolutely go. And Columbus at large has like the bigger city, like you would, the modern buildings, shops, restaurants, and all that. But when you can get into downtown, Old Town Columbus, it's just 2 to 3 miles of walking back and forth. It's Columbus, Mississippi. The cemetery is where Memorial Day first started. So that's another tidbit of history. So there's a lot of history in Columbus. And if you get the chance to go do their annual spring pilgrimage, full of information, full of experiences. So that's another reason I wanted to set part of my story there, was to have my characters enjoy it as much as I do.
That is really cool. All right. Okay, now let's switch over a little bit to talking specifically about writing.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is the best piece of writing advice that you've ever received?
Write every day. So this is not by any means a brag, but this is something that still overwhelms me because I can't believe that this actually happened. Back in the 70s and 80s, there's a TV show creator, Stephen J. Cannell. He created such amazing hits like The Rockford Files, The A-Team, A Greatest American Hero. He did all of those. And in the 90s, he sold his production studio and he turned into writing novels all the time. But he still kept up an appearance on social media. In 2009, I found an email address for his company, and I sent an email, and I said, it was something like, I'm sure that you'll never respond to this. You probably get so many emails or letters, I'll never hear back from you. But if you could offer one piece of advice, I'm an aspiring writer. What piece of advice do you have to encourage a long-term writing career? And about a few months later, I don't remember exactly when, I have it written down, but I got an email from them. He did back then what they call video queries, where he wouldn't just respond to that person, but he would video his response and share it on his website for everybody in the world to see. And I got the email that he was going to answer my question on the video query, and it would go live. He was the first professional in the world to call me Molly Jo instead of Molly, which totally excited and thrilled me. In my personal world, in my family, in my church world, they call me Molly Jo. And now that I'm more into the writing, I'm known as Molly Jo. Like, I promote that. But normally outside of that, at work, in my regular life, people just call me Molly. And so when he said, they read my question, and he turns to the camera away from his really iconic typewriter, the old typewriter that he used, the IBM Selectric that he used to type on. And he turns to the camera and he says, "Well, Molly Jo, that's a very good question." And then he spent 2 minutes answering my question. And for the longest time, that was his top rated video in his learning queries series. And that just thrills me to no end. I actually got to meet him about 6 months before he passed away. We were living in Southern California, and I'd taken my daughter to Disneyland for the weekend. Disneyland had, we had to change the weekend because they were under construction on one site, and they called and said, "Well, we can either change the week to the following week, or we can do this or that." And I said, "Well, we'll change it to the following week. That's fine," which happened to be my birthday weekend. And then I went on Facebook and I saw that Stephen J. Cannell was going to be in Anaheim. So I Googled the address, and it was a mile from Disneyland. So that was just fate. So I actually got to go meet him. And this was after he had done the video query. And so when I introduced myself and said, "My name is Molly, you answered my video query." And he goes, "Molly Jo." And I'm like, "Yeah." Oh my God. And I have, let me reach for it here without being awkward, but I have the photo of, that's us when we, at the book signing, he was doing the book signing. And so I keep this on my writer's desk. So
that is so cool.
It was really neat to just make that connection. And I know now, like, a lot of authors do author events, there's always conferences, but I was so brand new into writing. I hadn't even started writing NOLA. I was working on a movie script for an idea that I had, and I was terrible at it because I didn't know what I was doing. But he took the time through social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and through a couple of emails to just give me generic but really good sound advice that he would have given anybody. And while in no means, if I'd have shown up 5 years later, he would not recognize me, he would not know me, but still the way he portrayed helping others and what he offered was so helpful to me that he mentored me without knowing he was mentoring me. And my goal is to do that for other writers. That's why I love going to conferences and holding meetings and helping new authors do the same thing. I want to pour into them as much as people have poured into me, whether I know it or not. I don't need the credit. I'm not doing that for fame. I'm writing the books for the fame. I'm not helping other authors for the fame. But just to have that, that unity in the community is really fantastic.
Love that. So now I have to ask you then, specifically when it comes to flash fiction, what advice would you give someone who was like, "I want to write and I want to try my hand at flash fiction, but I don't even know how to go about it"?
So the first thing is to understand what flash fiction is. It's anywhere from 750 to 1,500 words. Most flash fiction is 1,000 words or less. That's the first thing to recognize. With that in mind, don't think of writing it as an entire story. You're not writing a story, you're capturing a moment. It has to be a full moment, a scene. Think of it as when I write, I envision things like a TV series or a movie. And so flash fiction to me is that little 10 or 12 minute segment between commercials. You have enough that you can understand what happened before and what's going to happen after, but you're not going to see those things. You're not going to know what those things are. And so flash fiction is just a concise amount that if somebody is reading it, they're going to get enough to say, I want more. You know, I understand enough of this character that if you showed me the next segment, I would know what it's about. If you showed me the segment prior to this, I would understand them. So you're just taking a snippet in time from a character's life and saying, this is what they went through on this particular moment, and evolving that into such a way that your readers understand. It's not a diary. It's not telling this is what happened on such and so day. You are exposing your characters' emotions and reactions as they go through it. Even if you use past tense, you're exposing those reactions and emotions in current time so that your reader catches their breath or gasps or goes, oh no, or ha, didn't see that one coming. You know, you want your reader to react. And you can get that in 500 words, you can get that in 1,000 words, but you had better get it multiple times or else they're going to turn the page and not come back.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. That's really good advice, Molly Jo.
I know. I'm glad we're recording this. I'm going to need that later. I'm going to have to remind myself of this stuff.
All right. So let's turn into readers for a second and put on our reader hat. Okay. And tell me some stories that you've read recently, or maybe you read them a while ago, but you cannot stop thinking about them.
I have recently fallen in love, like really fallen in love with love-inspired novellas. I want to write for them. I think they know that. I hope they know that. I would love to write for them. I haven't read that much in the last few years. I went through a couple of moves and different things, and then I just got lazy. And so I'm getting back to reading and writing. That's why I like the flash fiction. We'll get, because it gives me the opportunity to write short snippets and feel like I've fulfilled that calling. I did read one, a love-inspired this summer called The Beekeeper Next Door. And it was so fun. Like right off the bat, it got my attention. I buy them for research, but if I'm going to write for them, I need to know how to write their platform, what their style is. But I really liked it. Again, it was the same thing. It was a soft romance. It had moments of strife without it being a Criminal Minds episode. I don't want that stuff in my head anymore. Yeah, I used to watch all those crime shows, and now I'm like, no, we can just do a little innuendo and leave it at that. I'm good with that. I think the fourth time in my life, I'm trying to read through Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I absolutely love the Alfred Hitchcock movie. My mom raised me on that movie and the book, and she would read the book. And I don't know that I've ever read the book unless it was when I was a teenager and I've forgotten it. And so each year I bring it out and I try to read through it. And again, I started in January and boom, life hit hard, for months. So I'm going to pick it back up again and do my mom proud. And I'm going to finish it this time.
Yeah. I have heard really great things about that book, but I picked it up when I was in like 9th grade. Mm-hmm. And, as a teenager, my attention span wasn't very long and I ended up
right.
And I keep telling myself I need to pick it back up again. But now you've given me a kick in the seat of the pants, Molly Jo. I'm going to make myself get out.
Well, that's right. Well, here's one other little connection for that. What got me, what cracked me up, is my book designer. I self-published NOLA under my brand New Inklings Press, which I founded, my publishing company. But I still hired an editor, hired a book designer, hired a book graphic cover maker, all of that, because I wanted it to be, I didn't want it to look self-published, dismiss it. So I went through all that. My book designer, she's absolutely wonderful. I can't wait to finish the next book. She can't wait for me to finish the next book, but so she can do that. But she wrote to me and she said, as she was just formatting the book, she's reading snippets and going through this or that. And she asked if I had ever read Rebecca because it reminded her in parts of Rebecca. And I thought, oh, Well, that makes sense. I didn't realize that, but yeah, that makes sense. So if you like the classic of Rebecca, you will like the modern classic of Nola.
Oh, no, that's a good comp title. I was never good at
I
coming up with comp
know.
titles.
Just thought of it right now. So again, glad you're recording this.
All right. Well, before we go,
No, we can't go yet. We have so much to talk about. This is go on all night. Let's do this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, to be honest with you, I looked at the clock and I was like, it's been 25 minutes already. I feel like it's only been 10. But
Yeah.
that just means we're having too much fun. But we were talking before about a little story because I told you I kept calling you Mary Jo Realy. So tell us, you were telling me a little story, and I think the viewers would find that amazing. So tell us a story about that last name, Realy.
Well, it's so people are afraid to say my last name. They're afraid they're going to insult me. But my last name is Really. It's Really, but it's one L. You know, it's not two L's. It's one L, but it's pronounced Really. So, oh, really, really? Like I haven't gotten that my entire life. And unfortunately, people are afraid to try. So they go to their next best shot, which is Riley. And I'm like, there is no I in my name, not first, middle, or last. When I was growing up, Molly was a nickname for Mary. It wasn't a birth name for in my generation, but it is for me. However, when I would go to like Sunday school, I remember when I was very young, I remember the Sunday school teachers would call me Mary Realy, Mary Realy. In third grade, my teacher would say Mary Realy, and I would ignore her because I am not Mary Realy. Well, flash forward a little bit until you start getting into literature, and Mary Realy is the assistant to the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And that is the legacy that I choose to not live up to.
But you are willing to live up to the fact that you look like Molly Ringwald.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We talked about that. I grew up about the same age as Molly Ringwald. I was in high school when her Brat Pack movies came out. My favorite movie of hers is Pretty in Pink. And in fact, in high school, people would call me Molly Ringwald because they go Molly R. Oh, it must be Molly Ringwald. And so some people would do it by mistake because it's so common. Oh, Molly Ringwald, Molly Really, you know, so they would stumble on that. But then my close friends caught on. And so they started calling me Molly Ringwald on purpose. And that stuck for a handful of years. And I don't mind that because I really like her. I think she's awesome. And I love her movies.
Well, my next question is, do you have a breakfast club?
No, but I think I should. I should make one. Yeah, I'll work on that.
Because you're not busy enough, right?
Yeah, right. I thought my cat was going to come up and say hi to. I told you she would come up, but she's content sleeping in the chair next to me. So first time she's not wanting to be on camera while I'm live. Way to go! Make a liar out of me a little.
It's not like when you say your kid will never do something, and then here they come doing one thing that you said they never do. It's like that, but opposite. You're like, he'll never stay away from the camera, and then
yeah,
of course, chooses
well,
to not.
Last week I was away for a few days on vacation, and I had a friend coming in to take care of the cat, and they had put a cute little Christmas mug with candy canes on the counter. They had left that for me. And then she said, well, she was afraid that the cat would get it. So they put it in the fridge. I opened the fridge the next morning. I'm like, oh, hey, that's neat. So I'm like, when did this happen? And she said, well, she was afraid that Iris, my cat, would get into the candy canes, and peppermint's really bad for cats. And I said, oh no, she never gets up on the counters. Don't even worry about it. Next day, that cat's all over the counters. And I'm like, well,
Oh, bless it. Well, before we go, Molly Jo, tell us, where is the best place for readers to find you?
My website is mollyjoreally.com. It's MOLLYJOREALY.com. And everywhere on social media at Molly Jo Realy. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Goodreads, Pinterest. I think those are all of them. There's probably a few more yes, I know. There's probably a few more out there, but it's always at Molly Jo Realy.
Molly Jo Realy.
Because there's only one of me.
I love that. I'm kind of jealous of that, actually. I don't have that experience.
But see, but because there's only one of me, and so I branded myself as just at Molly Jo Realy. Now I don't have a cute brand name tagline other than, you know, that NOLA girl. So
I like that, though. I like that NOLA girl. I think
thank you. Hey, look, I lied. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen. This is Iris.
Ooh, hello, Iris.
She is 13 years old. She came to us at 3 years old by way of my daughter's high school friend who, when they all went off to college, nobody could care for the cat anymore. So I said, bring her here. And I took her in.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I'm a cat person. I love cats.
Oh, man. I love her eyes. Like, I don't know why, but cats tend to have like the prettiest eyes.
Mm-hmm. She's got mostly green eyes with a speckle of gold on one of them. So it's really good. All right, Jennifer, I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
What do you like to read most?
Oh, that's kind of a hard one because I dabble in almost every subgenre of romance. But I think my favorite would probably be historical romance.
Mm.
Yeah, thanks to Laura Ingalls Wilder, she ruined me for life.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, but Hope and I have been talking about really into romantic suspense. However, the problem is I've become paranoid now thanks to romantic suspense. Like if there's a car that's behind me for a long time, hail. If I get a weird text from an unknown number, must be a stalker. And then I have to give myself a reality check. So I don't know. I told Hope, I said, maybe I should take a break from romantic. And she's like, I don't know. I'm always cautious and wary. So, you know.
I mean, there are worse things that could happen to a person. So, you know.
That's true. Which part of it probably is like, as women, we normally are taught to be kind of cautious.
Yes.
And wary. So,
yeah, that's true.
Anyways.
That's true.
Well, Molly, it was great talking to you. I really enjoyed doing this. We should do it again sometime.
I would love that. It felt like it just flew by, and all we did was say hello.
I know, right? Yeah, it's too short. Well,
to be continued.
To be continued. We know that she's probably going to be in another issue. Like, let's be real. It's just like what? How many issues have you been in so far?
Three of the last 4. And that's only the last 4 or 5, but that's only because I didn't submit. So I love this flash fiction stuff. I will submit as much as I can, as often as I can. So
good. So we will count on doing this again sometime in the future. Maybe we can go a little bit longer. I don't know.
That would be great. I'm already working on my submission for the next one. So
yay! Okay, that's exciting.
It is. It is. I actually made a list of story ideas, and this one, before I even wrote them down, this one that wouldn't leave me alone. So that's the one that I have to write.
It's great, but annoying all at the time.
It is. So can I tell you the title? I won't tell you the story, but I'll tell you the title. I don't remember the theme for the next one. It's what?
It's sports.
Sports. Yeah. So the title for my flash fiction in the theme of sports is Love, Nothing.
And I think I know what sport it is. Okay, I might be wrong though, so I don't want to say it out loud, but that's good. I love that.
I know. I see. Now I'm going to have to work on it this weekend. Usually, I will tell you 2 of the last 3 that I've submitted to y'all, I've written like literally submitted at 11:59 to midnight on your deadline. The last one, I wrote one and I'm like, I can't do this. I didn't even know what I was doing. And so a week of working on a story, and I tossed it, and I had 4.5 hours to go. And I'm like, I will finish this. And I finished it, and I submitted it at 11:56. And then there was the most recent one. I was so exhausted. I knew what I wanted to write. This one I actually got done on time. The one prior to that, I submitted right at midnight. And when I refreshed, it said submissions closed. And I'm like, So I like to challenge myself, not intentionally.
You like that adrenaline rush, right?
I guess so. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it's not like I wanted to do things that way. No, it was this last one. It was, I thought I had a few extra days, or I thought I had another week, and I was so tired I couldn't almost see straight, and it was 10:30 at night. And so, not this one, the one before. And I clicked to see when is the deadline, and it was like midnight on such and so date. And I'm like, what's today's date? Well, I'm screwed. And I wrote the entire story because I had it in my head, the gist of it, but I did not have the story. And I wrote the entire story. It came out to like 1,200 words, and 1,266 words. So I had to cut 267 words. I got it down to 998 words. I hit submit, and then it said submissions closed. And I'm like, I'm going to bed now. But the benefit to submitting it at the last minute is that I don't have to wait as long to see if it's been accepted or not.
That's very true.
That's a thing.
No, well, see, I'm the type of person, I sit there and stress out, like, maybe I should change it. Maybe I should change it and then resubmit it. And but when you do it last minute, there's no
you don't have time to do that. All I have to, and let me tell you, it's hard when you write 1,200 words and you think, I can't do anymore. I can't cut it anymore because it has to tell the story. And then you find out that I recommend flash fiction as a writing exercise for people who say they have writer's block. Take your scene and tell it shorter. Quit. A lot of people say, oh, expand it. Tell all the flowery details. No, that's good, but we can all tell flowery details. What you need to do is to tighten it. That's what makes a good writer. And so if you can get 1,200, 1,500 words down to under 1,000, then you know that your writer's brain is comprehending what you're trying to put on the page. And that's the important thing.
Look at you giving another piece of advice for free.
We could go forever.
Well, thank you, Molly Jo, and thank you for everyone watching, whether it's live or watching the replay. Be sure, if you haven't read Molly Jo's story yet, to go onto our website. You can read it for free. And also, you might want to flip through the past few issues to see if you can catch another one of her stories. And of course, we always have at least 12 stories in each issue that you can sit there and read in the grocery store, or while you're waiting to pick up your kid from soccer practice or anything like that. So stay tuned, because we're going to have another issue coming up very soon.
Yay.
So have a great night, everyone. And don't forget to snuggle up in this very cold weather with a good book. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Jennifer.